to BBC. It's 5 o'clock, October 30th, 1962. There is a forecast of a cool evening with a high of 3 degrees. Hello, I'm Primrose Everdeen, here with the one and only Sylvia Plath, a very talented poet. She has written famous poems such as Dandy and Ariel. Hello, Sylvia. It's great to have you here today. Let's start off with you telling us a bit about your life. Oh, well, I was born during the Great Depression on October 27, 1932 at the Massachusetts Memorial Hospital. My mother, Aurelia Scober, was a master's student at Boston University when she met my father, Otto, who was her professor. They soon married in January of 1932. In April of 1935, my brother Warren was born, and in 1936, my family and I moved to Winthrop, Massachusetts. My father died on November 5th, 1940. It had been a week and a half after my 8th birthday. I was a sensitive child and a bit of a perfectionist. I kept a journal from the age of 11 and published my poems in regional and magazines and newspapers. In 1941, my first poem was printed in the children's section of Boston Herald. It was a short poem. I called it About What I See and Hear on Hot Summer Nights, but it was my first publication at the age of 8. My first national publication was in the Christian Science Monitor in 1950. The summer after graduating from high school. I won a scholarship to Smith College in 1950 and 5 years later graduated from there in 1955. I then won a Fulbright scholarship to go to Cambridge University in England, where I met Ted at a party that I had attended. We got married in 1956 and we moved to Denny, England, where I had my 2 children, Frida and Nicholas. Ted and I were not together anymore. We went our separate ways earlier this summer. But I am living currently with my 2 children in a flat right now in London. Last week we sent out a notice in the paper and got quite a few responses. Here are a few. From Lucy in London. Sylvia, what started you writing poetry? Well, I don't know what started me. I just wrote it from the time I was quite small. I like nursery rhymes, and I guess I thought I could do the same thing. I wrote my first poem, my first published poem, that is, as I said earlier, when I was 8.5 years old. I suppose since then I've become quite a professional. Here is one from Tom, also in London. What sort of things did you write about when you first began? Nature, I think. Birds, bees, spring, fall. I think the coming of spring, the stars overhead, the first snowfall, and so on are gifts for a child, a young poet. Katie from Bradford asks, as a poet, do you have a great and keen sense of the historic? I am not a historian, but I find myself being more and more fascinated by history, and now I find myself reading more and more about history. I'm very interested in battles and wars, in the First World War, and so on. I think that as I age, I am becoming more and more historical. I certainly wasn't at all in my early 20s. From Isabel in Derby. Setting aside poetry for a moment, are there any other things you would like to write or that you have written? Well, I was always interested in prose. As a teenager, I published short stories, and I always wanted to write a long short story. I wanted to write a novel. But now that I have attained, shall I say, a respectable age, I have had experience, I feel so much more interested in prose in the novel. And from Rose in Manchester, if you could have been anything other than a poet, what would you have been? A doctor. Yes, a doctor. When I was young, I would even dress up like a doctor with a white coat and all. Well, thanks for that, Sylvia, and the best of luck on your poem. Thank you for watching. This is Primrose Everdeen from PDC, and I would like to wish all of you a good night.